1, 2, and 3. It's our third video in 2 weeks. Now that is what I call consistency. Welcome back to Recap, a show where we bring to you some of the biggest tech news over the past week and break it down in a way that is easily digestible to anybody, irrespective of your interests or background. My name is, of course, Elijah, and I'm going to be your host for today, and you can find me on my social media handles at Elijah_Ajuwon. Recap is powered by Arkisites, which is an organization that aims to bridge the access gap between the tech sector and minority ethnic communities. If you want to find out more about our work, please visit www.arkisites.co.uk. Now that I've wrapped up all of our introductions, let's jump right into the good stuff. If you want to talk about a controversial topic in tech, you don't actually have to look much further than facial recognition technology. From the misidentification of suspects to privacy issues and everything in between, there always seems to be a new case against the implementation of facial recognition technology. In light of all of the issues that we've seen surrounding racial justice over the past couple of weeks, IBM and other tech companies have decided to ban the use of facial recognition technology by law enforcement agencies or get out of the facial recognition business altogether. All of these organizations have been concerned about the potential misuse of their technology. An article in the Washington Post by Drew Harwell explains the controversy in a recent study that shows that Asian and African American people were up to 100 times more likely to be misidentified than white men, depending on the particular algorithm and the type of search. Native Americans had the highest false positive rate of all their ethnicities, according to the study, which found that systems varied widely in their accuracy. The faces of African American women were falsely identified more often in these kind of searches used by police investigators, where an image is compared to thousands or even millions of others in the hopes of identifying a suspect. So, why is this important? Well, when you unpack this story even more, you may actually uncover that IBM have some processes and standards that some tech companies may want to emulate. First of all, IBM have been lobbying US leaders at all levels to push for important and overdue reforms for the black community in America. IBM's abandonment of facial recognition technology comes from the company's commitment to their values and the fact that they oppose any and all forms of human rights discrimination. This is something that we can learn from their statement to the US congressional leaders, which you can read in our sources part of the description below. Additionally, IBM's organizational design, or rather structure, means that all of their products and services are reviewed and scrutinized. In this particular case, IBM has an ethics AI board, which is led by their chief privacy officer. This C-suite executive makes sure that there are no conflicts with the way that their technology is being used and their values. Implementing similar structures and processes is something that I personally believe that tech companies should look into doing. This ensures that they know that their technology isn't being used to violate the values of their organizations. Now, one thing we can't do is overstate the importance of IBM, Microsoft, and Amazon's role in influencing tech companies to take a stronger stand on human rights and anti-discrimination. And I genuinely hope that tech companies start to follow IBM's lead and screen the technology with similar methods. In fact, let's actually do one better. Using IBM as a benchmark, I hope that tech companies can actually come up with more advanced and thorough ways of screening their technology. So what do you think? Do you think that more companies are going to follow IBM's suit, or is this just a phase that will pass by in the near future? Let us know in the comments below. At the time this video is, being uploaded to our social media platforms, it would have been just over 100 days since the World Health Organization declared coronavirus a worldwide pandemic. The uncertainty caused by this novel disease meant that nobody knew how this will affect multiple things: the economy, travel, healthcare system, in the short, medium, and long term. This can also be said about the tech sector. Commentators, journalists, and media channels all had their own predictions as to what will happen to tech companies during and after the pandemic. Well, in an article by Market Watch, it shows how the pandemic has changed the tech sector in its first 100 days. Now, big tech appears to be fine, and I don't really find this particularly shocking news or actually interesting. So let's talk about 3 other things that we've learned about the tech sector during the first 100 days of this pandemic. Video games are moving further into the mainstream media. Game publishers are showing games in the market as people have resorted to the use of video games for their method of entertainment during lockdown. April spending on gaming hardware, software, and game cards rose 73% from a year earlier to about $1.5 billion, according to the MPD Group, while spending in May climbed 52% to $1.2 billion. In these months, the figures that we just mentioned were record figures for their respective months. Electronic Arts chief executive Blake Jorgensen told investors that sports fans will flock into its Madden, FIFA, and NHL titles as substitutes for watching live sporting events. Take-Two's chief executive said nearly all of his company's titles outperformed in the first quarter, whilst chief executive of Activision said that first quarter net bookings hit new heights across the mobile, console, and PC platforms. But here's the thing. As lockdown restrictions become more relaxed, would users actually stay as engaged with video games? In my personal opinion, I don't think so. And as lockdown restrictions are loosened up, I believe that people are going to return to the activities that they couldn't do during lockdown. But hey, my word is definitely not gospel, so we'll just have to wait and see. What do you think? Another lesson that we've learned is that unfortunately, hardware sales aren't experiencing the same joy that video games are, despite the fact that people have rushed to equip their remote from home spaces. IDC projections show that PC shipments could drop by 12.4% to about 360 million units, and smartphone shipments could drop by about 12% to 1.2 billion units. Funnily enough, late last year, analysts predicted that the smartphone industry will return to growth because of the optimism about widespread 5G availability. And we all know how that's turned out. The analysts say that consumers may focus on buying staples rather than new electronics, given certain economic uncertainties, whilst businesses may curb tech purchases as they struggle to keep the lights on. It could be a while before we see hardware sales return to pre-pandemic figures. And finally, the last lesson learned is that we've seen a boom in collaboration software. Zoom was largely known in certain industries. However, it has exploded into public consciousness. In recent weeks, Zoom has seen 300 million daily meeting participants at its peak, which is more than 30 times its peak in 2019 of around 10 million users. Slack, a team communication tool, added more than 12,000 new paying customers in April, compared to 5,000 of each of the prior 2 quarters. These figures are all well and good. However, what is key for these companies is to find ways to turn these millions of free users into paying customers. With the emergence of Microsoft Teams, who have resources that dwarfs both Zoom and Slack, they, being Zoom and Slack, will need to fight hard to retain their gains. 2 weeks ago, it was Google. Last week, it was Facebook. And now this week, Apple is facing not one, but 2 antitrust probes from EU regulators. Now, just in case you're new to this channel, antitrust probes usually occur when there is evidence that an organization is behaving in an anti-competitive way, or in other words, a way that stifles competition in the market. A report from ABC News states that the European Union's Executive Commission said that it has formally launched an investigation over growing concerns that Apple's way of doing business is actually hurting consumers by limiting their choice and innovation and keeping prices high. Now, you can tell how Apple feels about these complaints because they dismissed these complaints as baseless, which to me is ballsy to say the least. The Commission is investigating Apple Pay's rules and whether or not they make it a preferred or default option, effectively shutting out any rival payment systems. The Commission has also opened a second investigation over concerns that Apple forces developers to use their own in-app purchasing system, a system that charges about 30% commission and stops developers from telling iPhone and iPad users about alternative ways to pay for digital services. Now, if you know the history between Apple and Spotify, it shouldn't be a surprise to you that Spotify have actually welcomed the investigation and have accused Apple of creating an unlevel playing field. EU Executive Vice President Margaret Vestager said that regulations wants to make sure that Apple's practices do not affect competition in markets where it competes with other app markets. Vestager, the EU's competition commissioner, has earned a reputation as one of the world's toughest technology regulators. Only 4 years ago, she ordered Apple to pay 13 billion euros in back taxes linked to a deal made with the Irish government, a ruling that the company is still challenging till this day. She also led antitrust investigations into other Silicon Valley giants, including Google, which resulted in multi-billion-dollar fines. Apple rejected the allegations, saying that it has created new products and services in the world's most competitive markets. We follow the law in everything we do, and we embrace competition at every stage because we believe it pushes us to deliver better results, the company said in a statement. So, what do you guys think about this case? Should tech companies have the rights to recommend their own products to their customers on their own platform? And what do you think the outcome of this particular case would be? Apple getting fined, or do you think they will walk scot-free? Unfortunately, that is all we've got time for this week. We do want to make this a weekly thing, as mentioned in previous week, so we would appreciate your support. So go ahead and smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, share this and drop your comments on your thoughts. Engage with us, engage with me. You can follow us on all of our other social media handles. We are at arkisites on Facebook, LinkedIn, of course, YouTube, Instagram and Twitter. And see you guys next week.